Welcome to Profiles in Eccentricity, a show about weirdos. With your hosts, John Fahey, Aaron Peter, and Matt Brousseau.
Hello, folks. Welcome to Profiles in Eccentricity. It's a doggone show about weirdos. I'm your host, John Fahey. Joining me, high-functioning pervert, prettiest boy under the sun. Say hello, Mr. Aaron Peter.
Hi, I'm Aaron.
How you doing, Aaron?
I'm great, John. How are you?
Did I interrupt you?
I mean,
Get it through your head!
Get it through your head! Oh shit, John, Matt. How are you guys? I had to do a little callback. We haven't done any Prince of Porn callbacks in a minute.
Yeah, we could really do a whole another episode on the Prince of Porn and how much we love it.
Yeah,
we just talk about it all day. We should.
We do.
Mm-hmm.
Matt.
Hi.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you? Wait, no, you already answered that.
Matt Brousseau.
Hi.
Prettiest boy under the universe.
Wow, that's a big sky.
What?
I'm sorry, dude. He looks great.
It's a different type of pretty.
Yeah.
I'm more of the woodsy pretty. You're like a city pretty.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
It's tight, dude.
You don't know what to embrace.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, fuck yeah.
I'll take it.
Actually cool.
Yeah. More people live in cities now. What's up, John?
I'm great. I got a dandy little tale to tell. Mm-hmm. But first, I have no idea what our co-host Matt Brousseau is going to lay on me right now. I don't know a thing, Aaron.
He comes to the table with some great unknowns.
He does.
Oh,
and there's a stack of documents.
He does have he has a folio.
There's a folio.
There seems to be a dossier here, and is that the piss dossier?
It's one of them.
Is that
one
right?
of the piss dossiers?
Oh.
Well, I wrote piss and rock on it, so
kidney stones.
yes.
Very good. Very good. Never
Never
had one. Any of you guys ever had one?
No.
What I do is I chill my kidney stones and then put them in my piss.
It doesn't water it down.
Yes, exactly. It's like the whiskey piss.
Right.
Hard piss.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's funny you say that, John.
He's never heard that.
So I got to hear a little. I didn't start in this spot I ended up in, but I was gonna talk about. There's some things I didn't mention during the live show. I was talking about Lennon and Harry Nilsson.
Mm-hmm.
The album that came out of that was Harry Nilsson's Pussycats, and they had to call it Pussycats because Lennon and him wanted to call it Strange Pussies, and the record label wouldn't let them do that.
No,
that's because he wanted to take a bunch of acid, find some women, and fuck them.
Well, that was a bright spot for that lost weekend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and then the cover of the album is a picture of Lennon and Nilsson sitting at a table. Underneath the table is a rug, and there's a child's block on one end that has the letter D, and on the other end is an S, so it spells drugs.
Huh.
Right.
D-rugs.
Uh-huh.
Got it.
During the recording, Nilsson blew out his vocal cords to the point where he was bleeding.
Ugh.
But he never told Lennon because Lennon was his friend, but also his hero, and he didn't want to.
Is that on account of all the chop?
Well, it didn't hurt.
Because he was a drinker who also did cocaine.
Also, that was noted.
Yes.
A noted drinker who also dabbled.
Right.
And his vocal cords were never the same for the rest of his career. And you can hear it in the album. You can hear him just like chugging through things that he used to be a beautiful singer with, and now he's...
Yeah.
Gross.
So... A friend of mine, my friend Anis from back home, he pointed out to me that he loved Harry Nilsson. He didn't know any of his music except for his sixth album, which was called The Point, which Nilsson thought of while taking acid in the woods one day. He thought of this whole story, and they animated the album. And the story of the album was a boy named Oblio who lived in a village where everybody had points on their head, but Oblio had a round head, and he didn't fit in. He thought of this on acid.
Wow.
Oblio accidentally angers one of the evil counts of the kingdom, and he's banished to the pointless forest, and he discovers that everything has a point, and he goes back into town, and they all learn something.
Okay.
Yeah, and the home video version of it was narrated by Ringo Starr.
Mm-hmm.
The TV version, the first one, was narrated by Dustin Hoffman.
Ooh.
So then Matt explained, he said, I know one other thing about Nilsson, my friend, and he said he made a song that he recorded with a bunch. He was in England and he recorded it at a British old folks home, and they sung it with him, and they handed around a bottle, and the song is called I'd Rather Be Dead, and the lyrics are I'd rather be dead then wet the bed.
I wonder.
It's all about piss.
Yeah, I wonder what happens with the bottle.
Well, they all drank the bottle.
Oh, there was liquor.
They weren't peeing in the bottle.
Oh, I thought they were all
drinking.
just,
They were all drinking
collectively urinating in a bottle.
Right.
But no, they were drinking some liquor or something.
And so then I said, well,
nobody's perfect.
Music and piss, that seems like a pretty good combination.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
And so, recently there's video of Kesha on My Crazy Beautiful Life. She was rumored to have pissed in a bottle and then drank it on camera.
Is that a fact?
That is true. Justin Bieber was arrested for being drunk in public, and in order to he did a pee test in Canada, or a piss test, I guess you'd call it, and the police, in order to prove it was him peeing, they filmed it.
Nice.
And they put a black bar over his penis, and I think that leaked out.
Right. The black bar.
The urine?
The urine.
The urine leaked out, yeah. Hopefully.
Just a moron sandwich. Did the black bar leak out? No, you're saying the piss leaked out. Sorry.
No.
Matt.
So there's a long, sordid history of piss and music. And Jim Morrison pissed himself and drank it while tripping in the Mojave.
Shut up.
Uh-huh.
You can actually, on certain drugs like meth for sure. Yeah, they call it chem piss, but also like psychedelics, like mushrooms, you can drink your urine after doing the drug, and it really kicks it up a notch. It really sends it, it's nice.
It kicks it up a notch. It's not nice, first of all.
No, it really does.
Nice. No, hold on.
It kicks it up a notch.
It doesn't kick it up a notch. It's just you doing the same drugs that you already did that you pissed out.
John?
Just a third year. Let's not act like it's better.
It kicks it up a notch. They used to do this. They used to do this with in Siberia. They would like the Amanita muscaria mushrooms, the red ones with the white dots.
Yeah,
they're kind of toxic, right?
Oh, like the Mario ones.
Yeah, Mario. So they're slightly toxic. So you either have to like cook them or make a tea, or whatever, or you could drink the piss of the reindeer who are eating them.
Right.
Because it would filter out a lot of the toxins, and you could just drink the reindeer piss.
Right.
There's a whole thing with Christmas and Santa Claus, and that we can get to another.
The reindeer.
Yes.
Really.
But
couldn't you just look into its kaleidoscope eyes and get fucked up?
But why do that when you can just drink piss?
You're right. You're so smart.
Thanks. He knows exactly what to say. Please continue with your tales of urine.
So also a notable piss drinker was Keith Richards, who drank his own piss.
Every day?
He was told it was a detox cure.
Oh my dear God.
Huh.
Could they be any more wrong?
A detox cure?
Well, it was a form of detox, I guess you could say.
I think it was detox to retox.
It was a retox.
Of course it's a retox.
Kind of like hair of the dog. Piss of the hog.
Hey, this piss tastes like Jack Daniels. What are the odds?
This piss
takes the edge off this hangover. I wonder why.
This piss tastes like my dad's ashes, which he snorted his dad's ashes.
Yeah, I heard that.
Right.
The Rolling
That's
Stones.
why he's still alive.
That's there's a lot of things. The Rolling Stones had a history with piss. They were fined by the British police for peeing on a garage during after a show when they couldn't use the bathroom. They were fined £5, I believe it was, each when they were boys.
Oh, $5?
Yeah.
$5. Piss. $5. Piss again.
It's light work. Free money.
How did you let that one go and I dived on it first, you fuckhead?
Dude, I'm just trying to kick it up a notch over here.
Boy George also drank his own piss.
Does not surprise me in the least.
Ozzy Osbourne peed in the Alamo.
Yes, he did. Yes, I knew that.
Also, Ozzy, in order to prove that he was a dirty man, once at a bar, licked his piss off the floor and then licked Nikki Sixx's piss to further prove his point.
God
well,
almighty.
What's so gross about that? It was a floor of a bar.
Well, yeah, and you got Nikki Sixx's piss in there.
Oh, God. We were just talking earlier about piss being sterile. His was not.
The Motley Crue biography is the one where they get...
Heroin Diaries?
They got him to snort the line of ants.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that where the story came out first?
That's where I first heard it. But Motley Crue was definitely like, yeah, this dude was insane. He hung out with us. He snorted a line of ants.
What's more insane, ants or dads?
Or licking piss? Piss? Or licking piss off the floor? I don't know.
Try it out. I guess we'll get back to you next episode.
Yeah. We'll see you guys at the teak.
Do not lick anything off the floor at the teak.
That's not piss. Chuck Berry, noted pee fanatic.
Yes.
Here's a transcription of a recording that was made while Chuck Berry was having relations with a lady. He said, "Did I piss in your eyes? I'm sorry. There's piss all over you.
Oh my God!
Your neck and your hair. But you love me."
No.
And she said, "I love you."
Hey, Chuck! Hey, Chuck! It's me, your cousin, Marvin. Marvin Berry. You know that new drink you've been looking for? Well, try out some piss.
Try it out!
Actually, Marty McFly invented piss drink.
That's true.
Joan Jett, once she was being bothered by some douchey groupie, and she made a popsicle out of lemonade and piss and gave it to him, and he said, "Oh, this tastes like shit."
No.
And she said, "You're close."
Wow, really?
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Izzy Stradlin from the Guns N' Roses, he once peed in front of an entire plane of people.
That's funny.
Yeah, you guys are a rock star.
Yeah.
The Who, the cover of Who's Next is them walking away from a big monument they all peed on, but actually only one of them peed on it. The rest is just water.
Yeah.
Hate to break it to you. Sid Vicious, he pissed himself the night he met Nancy.
Wow.
Yeah.
And probably many after.
Of course, I'm sure.
Yes.
The Ramones, they peed in Johnny Rotten's beer.
Yay!
And that's how they made Steel Reserve.
Give me my Steel Reserve.
High gravity louder.
Steel Reserve.
Excellent harmonizing.
Johnny Rotten, in his letter to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, do you remember? He wrote a letter.
Yes.
They
He brought
tried
up
to
piss.
induct the Sex Pistols, and he wrote to them, "Next to the Sex Pistols, rock and roll in that Hall of Fame is a piss stain. Your museum, urine in wine. We're not coming."
Yeah.
And then he ended by saying, "Outside the shit stem is a real Sex Pistol."
Wow.
He was Johnny Rotten. I guess he still is.
I don't understand any of that, but it does sound cool.
He was just saying that the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is dumb because it's all people that are already in it induct the next people. So it's of course heavily bigoted.
That's how clubs work.
Yeah, but do you trust their judgment of what is authentic
I don't trust.
rock and roll?
No. Same thing with the Oscars or anything like that. Yeah, the Oscars so white. Duh.
Right.
It's the Oscars.
Right. But they could if they let Rin Tin Tin in early on, they could have been Oscars so dog. Because after that, it would have been nothing but dogs.
Fucking dog.
Lassie 2, Lassie 3.
Oscars so dog. I don't know, nothing.
Hey, R. Kelly, big
Yes,
pisser.
of course.
Loves it.
I don't mean to steal your piss thunder.
No. But that brings us to the Beatles. The Beatles, in 1960, they were living in Hamburg, Germany, or Hamburg, and they lived behind a local theater next to the toilets. And they said that they had to use the urinal water to bathe and shave.
Oh.
Well, it's water like any other water.
Right, but it's cascading off piss porcelain.
Mm-hmm.
Ah, piss porcelain. When I grew up, my family, we didn't have a lot of money, but we did have class. We were piss porcelain.
You always shine during these piss segments, don't you?
It's my bread and butter.
Absolutely.
And John Lennon, he also drank his own piss at one point.
No.
Which is fun because, as was pointed out to me, he was killed by a man who was urged to kill him by J.D. Salinger, and J.D. Salinger also drank his own piss.
Really? Well, he was alone a lot.
Yeah, that'll do it.
I think he was alone a lot because he drank his own piss.
It is a combo of those.
You don't really want to talk to him if he's got that piss breath.
Oh, God.
What, does that gross you out? You love drinking piss up until you got to smell the breath?
Yeah, I plugged my nose.
And that brings me to this final thing, which somehow was not in all of my research about the Lost Weekend. And it really ties it all together.
Yes.
John Lennon, while recording with Phil Spector, he was at the A&M studios, and they were all kicked out one night because someone pissed on the board.
Oh,
Nice.
no.
Yes. And in response to this, Phil Spector was apparently very upset, and John Lennon wrote him a personal letter. And it goes like this. It starts out, "A matter of pee. Phil, see you around 12:30, ! Should you not yet know, it was Harry and Keith Moon, who pissed on the console.
What is he throwing everybody under the bus?
Under the piss bus.
This fucking piece of shit. Dude, oh man, he sucks. The more I know about him.
Glad he got fucking shot. Beating the shit out of Yoko, teasing Stevie Wonder with coke that he can't even see.
Try it out.
He writes, Jerry now wants to evict us, or that's what Capital tells. Anyway, tell him to build capital for damage, if any, ? I can't be expected to mind adult rock stars, nor can May Peng. Besides, she works for me, not A&M.
May Peng!
May Peng! She's Chinese.
And then John writes, I'm about to piss off the record plant because of this crap. John. The record plant was another record studio.
Oh.
He wrote this to Phil Spector, never gave it to him, gave it to another studio musician who never gave it to Phil, and then a couple years ago it sold at auction for $88,000.
Yeah.
Huh.
Good old piss letter.
Yeah.
And Phil killed some people.
We talked about, we brought up Orange Juice, the band.
Yes.
When they went on the Top of the Pops, etc., these guys were always fighting and getting fucking soused, man. Like, just getting hammered.
On like, booze, speed,
back-to-back TV episodes, and one of them was they were like in front of the studio audience, and one of the other guys was fucking with the other one during the performance, and he started making him laugh so hard that he pissed himself. And he was like, and a bunch of these like, young girls in the audience were like, holy shit, this is like a pop star pissing himself on TV. Like, you don't ever see this, and I don't think they ever released it.
God, if we could find that, that'd be so cool.
So awesome.
It was noted that when the Beatles came to America, after everybody left the venue, sometimes it smelled like piss.
No
because,
way.
This is the theory, the young women, the young girls were so excited to see them that they pissed themselves.
Oh my God. Oh yeah.
That's dope.
Yeah.
When we roll to town, these girls, they just can't help themselves. They piss themselves. It's probably like 4 guys who showed up to everywhere.
Do you remember like growing up, there was that one Michael Jackson video where it was all the open air concert of all these girls fainting and crying like crazy, and it was just pandemonium.
What, You Were Not Alone or something like that?
No, this was like I think like off like the Bad album or something.
Okay.
It was one of those like serious, but it was such pandemonium that you were like, I remember I was in love with Michael Jackson. I still remember looking at these girls being like, it's okay. You settle down. Yeah. But surely before they fainted, they had pissed themselves probably hours
or
before.
right after.
Who knows? But either way, there is piss, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
When was the last time you pissed yourself?
Oh God.
I haven't.
Pissed myself?
Pissed.
Last time I pissed myself.
I don't think the listeners are ready to hear the last time we got pissed on. So,
no.
When was the last time you pissed yourself?
Fuck.
It's hard. It's good.
It's been long enough that I don't.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Good. Tough to say.
Yeah.
Matt?
I have not pissed myself in memory. I have. Well,
even as a kid.
Yeah. Well, I don't remember.
I'm trying to think about more like early 20s pissing, like drinking like a lunatic type things, and I have more of a thing of like I might piss on something fucked up because I'm up drunk,
and you think it'd be cool to piss on it.
No. I think what I'm peeing on is the toilet, but it's entirely not.
Yes, I've done that.
Yeah, that's a thing.
Someone yelled at me and I said, no, they moved the bathroom. And then I left.
Sometimes my dad would wake up and I'd be like, that's not the bathroom. And he'd be like, I know. And I'm like, well, what are you doing in there, you weirdo? Get out. You be in the kitchen or something. I'd be like, get the fuck out of there. I know you're going to pee. You psycho.
For the sake, yeah.
One time, I think I was like in kindergarten or first grade or something, and we were playing Duck, Duck, Goose on the playground.
Duck, Duck, Piss.
Duck, duck, it's piss. Duck. No, we're playing Duck, Duck, Goose.
Whack.
And I did the Duck, Duck, Goose thing, and I sat back down, and apparently I started pissing myself, or I had pissed myself, and the teacher, Mrs. Bucci.
Oh.
She.
Oh, Mrs. Bucci.
Oof, Maroon.
I got your Bucci.
She was like, Aaron, did you have an accident? Did you make a mistake? And I was like, no, I meant to pick that person as the goose. And she was like, no. And I had pee-peed myself.
Right. Oh. And you said, no, Miss Bucci, I meant for you to smell my piss.
Taste my pain, bitch! Joke's on you.
Can we get more piss and return?
Sure, yeah.
Can we do that?
Yeah.
Is that cool?
All this. I'm piss parched.
Because I got to deliver this whole profile. And I'm going to be piss parched.
Yeah. After these messages, we'll be pissed. Something.
Welcome back to Profiles in Eccentricity, folks. Matt just dropped some severe piss knowledge on us. That was very excellent, Matt.
Oh, thank you. That
Rich, thick golden braids of fizzy knowledge.
I think you really dialed into the best part of the program, which is piss facts.
Mm-hmm. That's basically what it was.
I mean, we've done a lot of that lately. It's really good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
On the second extra that we've recorded for the Profiles in Eccentricity Patreon,
Yes.
we went deeper into piss facts. And I'm not gonna give away too much more, but we found some crazy inventions that came out because of piss with our guest Laura Crawford, and we talked that moved on to nukes and
it was a conversation that ran the spectrum.
it did
The gamut.
yes
Sure.
So
so
it was good. It was really fun, actually.
May 1st the Patreon will be up, and if you join, you will have that episode, the after Malcolm McLaren episode, as well as Aaron's breakdown of Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey.
Yes,
That's pretty good.
Bastion of modern cinema and storytelling.
Pretty solid extra content.
Yeah,
If I do say so myself.
For no more than $1.
No, that's a $5.
That's right, $5.
Yeah.
For a $5 a month,
Yeah.
or more if you want.
Yes.
Pins, stickers, shirts.
Yes. I mean, there's the whole breakdown that you'll see on the Patreon.
May 1st, folks.
May 1st, it'll be ready.
Babe.
Aaron, you and I will geek out heavily on some comic book nerdy shit.
Yes, we will.
And we have talked recently about Marvel's Civil War. And there's a great thing that happens in there. And we talk, me and you nerd out a lot about Captain America and how he's like kind of the voice of what you kind of want America to be, even though America is kind of a nation in decline, right? And there was the Mark Millar, the comic author, said the thing recently about Superman is a patriotic hero from a bygone era.
Right.
But somehow Captain America still gets away with being the hero of the modern age. He still embodies America somehow.
Yeah.
And
where Superman fails.
Superman does fail. There's something more personal about all the Marvel heroes, is what he was saying. Right. Why they don't achieve the same cinematically that Marvel heroes do. And you sent me a couple of panels that you thought were very poignant from Civil War. Civil War, do you want to describe what Civil War is?
No, go for it.
Civil War is a story that was great from 2006-ish, I think.
Yeah, 2006, 2007.
And it was basically preying on the idea that was first established in Watchmen of what if superheroes had to register and be government employees?
Right.
And they had to give up the secret identities and all that stuff. What would happen? And so, of course, there's a civil war. There's superheroes that will refuse to do it. The ones that go along with it are led by Iron Man. The ones that won't are led by Captain America.
Shockingly. It's interesting.
Yeah,
yes.
It's a good flip.
Where the private entity, the private businessman sides with registration in the government, and the national superhero created by the government decides to not go along with registration.
Which is almost a commentary on how America became. Like, it was like war was, kind of privatized, and then like the soul of the country was kind of like, no, we don't think so,
Right. When Spider-Man's the man in the middle, I thought that was
Spider-Man is exactly the man in the middle, and he's portrayed as kind of a flip-flopper. And it's because Spider-Man is so beholden to his own conscience. So these panels that we're going to talk about...
And he's a kid.
He's not really a kid anymore.
He's older in Civil War, but he's
always
still...
spiritually a kid.
Yes.
But these panels are Captain America talking to Spider-Man, who has embraced Tony Stark's thing of registration. He reveals his secret identity, and then he has second thoughts about what's going on and feels like it's a sellout. And then he comes back to Captain America, and he asks Captain America, tell me what to do. I don't know what the right thing to do is. Please, Aaron, if you would.
So Captain America responds to Peter, I remember the first time I really understood what it was to be an American, what it was to be a patriot. I was just a kid, 1,000,000 years ago. It seems sometimes. Maybe 12. I was reading Mark Twain, and he wrote something that struck me right down to my core. Something so powerful, so true that it changed my life. I memorized it so I could repeat it to myself over and over across the years. He wrote, in a republic, who is the country? Is it the government, which is for the moment in the saddle? Why, the government is merely a temporary servant. It cannot be its prerogative to determine what is right and what is wrong, and decide who is a patriot and who isn't. Its function is to obey orders, not to originate them. Who, then, is the country? Is it the newspaper? Is it the pulpit? Why, these are mere parts of the country, not the whole of it. They have not command, they only have their little share in the command. In a monarchy, the king and his family are the country. In a republic, it is the common voice of the people. Each of you, for himself, by himself, and on his own responsibility, must speak. It is a solemn and weighty responsibility, and not lightly to be flung aside at the bullying of the pulpit, press, government, or the empty catchphrases of politicians. Each must for himself alone decide what is right and what is wrong, and which course is patriotic and which isn't. You cannot shirk this and be a man. To decide it against your convictions is to be an unqualified and inexcusable traitor, both to yourself and to your country, let men label you as they may. If you alone of all the nation shall decide one way, and that way be the right way according to your convictions of the right, you have done your duty by yourself and by your country. Hold up your head, you have nothing to be ashamed of. And then he goes on to tell Peter, Spider-Man, doesn't matter what the press says, doesn't matter what the politicians or the mob say, doesn't matter if the whole country decides that something wrong is something right. This nation was founded on one principle above all else, the requirement that we stand up for what we believe, no matter the odds or the consequences. When the mob and the press and the whole world tell you to move, your job is to plant yourself like a tree beside the river of truth and tell the whole world, no, you move. And then Peter Parker says, can I carry your bags to class?
This young lady I'm going to tell you about is very much no, you move.
Hell yeah.
Sophie Scholl was born into a very well-to-do German family. She grew up with her siblings, and they were in youth movements and stuff like that.
Time period. What time period?
Well, this is 1930s.
Okay. Sophie, born in the 30s in Germany.
Yes. And her siblings were all in kind of like German youth league movements. And then as the Nazis took over, it was very natural to slip into Hitler Youth stuff, which her and her brother both did. And her sister was saying, you have to understand, she's like, everybody in lockstep singing along to the same songs. She was like, how could you not be moved by the fellowship? How could you not think this is right? Her father was very displeased because he, Robert Scholl, was not at all a fan of what was going on.
Of the the burgeoning Nazi movement.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he didn't come from any like really sort of rebellious thing. He was just kind of an educated German that was like very devout in his faith. And he thought, this is like something is wrong here. And there was very much like an idea of we have lost our freedom. We're sort of hostages here.
Yeah.
Like this is very fun and we're all going along with it. But this is a disaster.
Right.
And his son, Hans, was the first one to kind of start.
Hans
Scholl was the first one to start going along with it. And it was just like, I talk about this all the time about the guy that grew up in Germany and then he moved.
He left.
He left.
And then he came back.
And he moved to the UK and he came back and he was saying, when I went to the first Hitler rally, he's like, and I had the doubt of what was going on from foreign press. And I went to this rally and everybody was so swept up in it. He's like, I just felt so alone, you know? And like, why would anybody want to feel that way? Like, of course you would want to find excuse to get into it. And that's how these kids felt too about the youth movement. Like there was like
especially kids,
a mysterious power that was like sweeping you all along the drum beat and everything. And Hans and Sophie, this is said by Sophie's younger sister, Inga, it wasn't so surprising that they joined the Hitler Youth. We entered into it with body and soul, and we cannot understand why our father did not approve, why he was not happy and proud. On the contrary, he was quite displeased with us. So Robert Scholl was basically just completely understanding as a rational person of how this was totalitarianism. And Hans, the son, was in some of these younger German movements that weren't Hitler Youth based. And he was kind of scolded for having a homosexual affair, which the Nazi party was not down with. Right.
On the surface.
Very much on the surface, right? And that was kind of held over his head. Sophie, meanwhile, his sister, had Jewish friends when she was younger, and she was kind of seeing how some of these laws, about like what race you were and what you could do, who you could marry into, all this stuff, all of that was affected by that. So as young kids, they just saw things that they were like, okay, this is clearly injustice. And their dad was kind of egging them on. It was like, at first they were like, this is gung-ho, like Hitler Youth, hell yeah, but then they saw some stuff like, okay, they don't really love the homosexual affairs of 16-year-olds, and they don't really like my young Jewish friends. So these young kids start getting politicized by not just their father, but also their surroundings. They basically agree that Hitler is enslaving the Germans. And in the name of freedom, they really need to start doing some kind of rebellion. And at first, Sophie doesn't know anything. Her brother Hans is really leading the way because he's a med school student. But you want to kind of like hide out, but you can't really hide out. You still get sent to the front. You have to treat German soldiers. And his friends would see, mass graves. And they would see the rumors like on the front of concentration camps.
So the war has already started at this point.
This is 1942. They're deep into
shit.
it.
Okay.
But you're in a very middle class German family
where you're normally insulated.
Yes,
but he's been thrust into the truth by seeing these atrocities.
Right. And around this time, their father at work, just a plan is he serves time because somebody grasses him up in a very Orwellian way, where you can't say anything against Big Brother.
You see something, say something.
He says, the war, it is already lost. This Hitler is God's scourge on mankind, and the war doesn't end soon. The Russians will be sitting in Berlin. Calls it in 1942.
No shit.
It's like, this is what's going to go down. So, again, they're all very religious, too, all these kids. And they listen to a lot of pastors. There's a lot of priests that have things like...
Are they Lutheran?
They're Lutheran, and some of their friends are Catholic. Germany at the time of the war was pretty much like half and half.
Yeah.
Protestant Catholic.
Yeah, there's a big misconception that the Nazis were atheists.
Yeah.
But no, there was right on a lot of their sigils, it said, God is with us.
Right. Yeah, and Mussolini, of course, brought a lot of sympathy to the whole fascist movement thing, and Hitler is Catholic.
Yeah.
Which I never knew for the longest time. Baptized Catholic, But in the same way as England, Germany is very split down the middle, Lutheran, Protestant, whatever, Catholic. So a lot of these kids were very into theology. They start going to their friends at the University of Munich, and Hans and his sister Sophie, and they start talking to people, and they go to some classes, and they realize one of the professors is kind of undermining Hitler very subtly. And so they start talking to him, and they get this group going, and they start realizing, like, Sophie has a boyfriend on the front, Fritz, right? And Fritz is telling her, he's like, I've seen people killed in mass graves, shot, and then buried. He's like, there's mass extermination of Jewish people. People didn't know this was going on. Like, don't forget, the Americans didn't know this was going on. This was happening.
The mass American public didn't know what was going on. But reconnaissance kind of knew it. At a certain point, they knew and didn't act. But yeah.
But people coming back to middle-class Germany, this is the thing, is you're talking about completely unaffiliated Germans, like total middle-class, regular Germans are finding out about these crimes and saying, this is not who we are.
Right.
This is wrong.
Right.
That's one of the most amazing things about class difference is that class shields you from those things. I recently saw that JFK didn't know about the Great Depression.
I saw the same thing today, too.
JFK didn't know the Great Depression happened until he read it in books, even though he grew up during that time, but he was so shielded from it. He never saw it or read about it or heard about it.
Isn't that crazy?
That's completely insane. Yeah. And that's what really pissed off the Chinese about when that new textbook came out in Japan that was not completely...
Left out the rape of Nanking.
Completely ripped out. Like, left out the rape of Nanking, all of the sex slave shit that happened with the Chinese. Like,
yeah, there's a lot of... I think another... just a sidebar. There is a... everybody talks about Dr. Death. The German Dr.
Joseph Mengele.
Joseph Mengele.
Yeah.
There's a Japanese Dr.
Absolutely.
Death that is out of fuck. I mean, it's some District 9 level vivisection stuff that I think I'll do a profile on at some point. It's horrific, but
it's truly horrific.
But it's worth knowing.
Yeah. Like, it's really funny because, like, some cultural things would happen where I always thought my dad was a very rational, astute man. And some things would happen like say after 9/11, my father would react like this. Like, he would react like, all of the fucking shit I'm reading is telling me I need to understand Muslim culture. And he's like, and I don't want to understand. He's like, I'm angry.
Right.
I don't want to understand right now. And of course, later that would subside, and he'd be like, of course you have to understand problems to know how to tackle them. Mm-hmm. But after my father read The Rape of Nanking, he became equally socially. He's like, I never bought a Japanese car. Because this book horrified him so much, Yeah. And this is basically what these kids are struggling with, is they're saying, we are part of an apparatus that is engaged in pure evil.
Yeah.
Like, this is sheer evil. We just can't go along with it, And they know they're the only ones. They're really in the mouth of the wolf. They're the only ones that are going to do this. And they're just white, regular old German students. And they get this professor on their side so they can get access to paper, envelopes, mimeograph to make copies.
Distribution.
And they start making these leaflets and dropping them around, and just talking about, like, we're in a slave state, there's massive war crimes being committed, and the war is over, we're done. Because this is post-Stalingrad, too, don't forget. So the war is turning, too.
Right.
And...
which is, it's also very Lutheran-esque.
Yes. Yes.
Because that's what Martin Luther did. Leaflets.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
File your grievances and tack them up on a wall.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, when we were doing research on this thing, and Laura and I were saying we didn't realize at this point it was so easy to get found because you were using paper.
Yeah.
That's rationed at this time.
Yeah.
Wow.
And never mind a mimeograph.
Look on the list. Who's got paper?
Yeah. So, and the Gestapo was going nuts because, especially after the loss of Stalingrad, the German people get this rousing speech by Goebbels telling them it's total war right now. This is the first time they admit we're in danger. We might lose.
Right.
This is the first time. So anybody that's stirring up shit at home, they're ready to bring the fucking axe down hard. So they just tell everybody in the leaflet, please copy and distribute. Like, tell them, like, some of the people in the White Rose is the name of the resistance group they founded, right? Which
White
is supposed to be innocence and purity in the face of pure evil, right? That's why it's the White Rose.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. And they would act like they were bigger than they were. They would take to the train and they would go up to Hamburg and drop a bunch of leaflets and be like, oh no, this is a nationwide thing. This is not just
huge.
This is not just 5-6 kids, which it was. Fuck. It was 5 or 6 kids that were just like crisis of conscience and started going all around. And
it's kind of like what we were talking about with like Castro.
Yeah. Back
in the days is kind of like becoming a myth.
Yeah.
And then the reaction to the myth is then what empowers the myth.
Right. It's like that thing of you see a little trail of resistance and you think it's going to lead to this huge movement and you don't realize it's just a trail. It's just a trail, but if you're ready to follow that idea and enough people are as well, then it will become that, right? So they're doing all that. In the meantime, some of the guys, Hans, Sophie's older brother, are still getting sent to the front. And they're med school students and stuff like that. So, like, they're, like, treating the wounded. But some of these guys would speak Russian and stuff like that. And they would find out about all these grave crimes the Russians were committing. And they would find out about, extermination of 300,000 Jewish people, And I think it's really...
that the Russians were committing, or
the Germans were doing, Most of the notes I got from this were from the Jewish virtual library, which this gentleman, Jacob Hornberger, wrote this amazing thing about the history of the White Rose and just how important it was that a bunch of kids that really could have kept their head down in a very upper middle class way were totally ready to sacrifice themselves to be like, this is just wrong. Yeah. This is just against the human spirit.
Right.
Like, this is just evil.
I especially love the, so much of the Nazi messaging was purity, racial purity.
Yeah.
But they counter it with this innocence and the purity of the White Rose, like a more pure purity, I think is very
Oh yeah, absolutely
special.
Yes, it is, and it's just preying on something deeper than like Nazism is new. Faith is not.
Right.
It was very much born in like a religious thing of like,
and even older imagery, because the Nazis, a lot of their imagery went back to this weird, Vedic, Celtic, old Nordic imagery. The SS is actually 2 lightning bolts. It's not 2 S's, right?
Yeah.
A lot of these runes, but to go back to even something older, even older than language of a rose is really something. Yeah, so the fact that 5 kids came up with it is amazing.
Yeah, and there's really not many of them. Like, there's really just, there's like a couple of there's only a few women. But they were very happy because Sophie wasn't supposed to know. Her brother was doing this resistance shit, and Sophie wasn't supposed to find out. And then once she kind of sees the leaflet dropped around the university, she kind of instinctively knows, like, oh, my brother's involved in this. And so she goes to him and says, what's the deal? And then they get her involved. And then they were very thankful because she was way less likely to be searched by the SS when they were passing stuff around because they were desperate to get these people.
Of course.
And so they have the use of the mimeograph from, the people working at the university that were sympathetic. And it's, if you think about it, like, if you think about how rebellious our universities are here now, the idea that so few people in a Nazi university at the time, you know what I'm saying? Like universities have always been kind of bastions of rebellion. And like, this was just a tiny little bit of people.
But I think in a position like that, everybody's singing the same song and they're all doing this, but they're all getting these suspicions and they're saying, what can I do that won't put me in trouble? What's the basically the least I can do because I have to do something.
Right. So that was the thing that these first White Rose pamphlets were saying was passive resistance. Mm-hmm. Right. Kind of like not even like in a Schindler way, like, make sure the bombs don't go off or anything like that. Just, don't support where you can. Mm-hmm. And they start dropping like graffiti with stencils and stuff like Hitler, the mass murderer, Hitler, down with Hitler, freedom, freedom, freedom. So now it's just like pamphlets, random graffiti. You don't know where it's coming from. But this is the first time you've ever seen rebellion like this. It's just a couple of kids doing it.
But the cracks are starting to show.
Well, also just that it was like, it was the first time, Goebbels and the Third Reich leveled with them being like, yeah, we might fucking lose this thing. Yeah. And then they declared a policy of what they called total war. So all hands on deck.
If you're with us or against us.
Yeah, like we got to do this thing. It went up to the University of Hamburg. Copies started being made up there. They went to as far as Austria too. They some of that would get around. Just like, again, during the war rations, the SS was so like, we have to find out how these people are getting envelopes to send shit around. Where are they getting paper? Where are they getting
Isn't that crazy? Postage? Where are these people getting envelopes?
Yeah. Because
Call the minister of envelopes.
But again, like if you have like the most automated fascist state and the trains are running on time, and you should be able to count it to the decimal, right?
And where you can go backtrack to where that envelope came from, who licked it.
Right. Right, so that's what they were saying. So they were in a huge tiz, right?
They were tizzed out?
The Gestapo was in a massive tiz,
Oh,
dude.
Shit. When the Gestapo gets tizzed up, better watch out. Whoop, whoop.
So when Hans and the other friends, they would have to go to the front, they would leave it to Sophie to still act like we're still in active resistance. Like, we have to go and do this shit. And they would come back with more horror stories. And then...
God, can you imagine their conscience, like, going out there, I gotta go... On one hand...
Well, like, I think luckily a lot of them were doing, like, med stuff.
Which is, I guess, on one hand, you are saving a life. You're saving a countryman's life, right? Yeah. But also, you are, in a way, you are a cog in that machine.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But, there is no choice.
No,
like,
there isn't.
Sophie tried to hide out doing kindergarten teaching after she left school.
German word, kindergarten.
Yeah. And she still had to serve for some kind of like national labor board. Like they found a way to just draft everybody. Everybody had to get involved, even if you were trying not to. Even if you picked a job that would so like little likely get you involved with the fucking Nazi war effort, they would still find a way to draft you in, no matter who you were. So their activities were kind of interrupted when the boys were at the front, and her boyfriend Fritz Hartnagel.
Fritz Hartnagel
was telling her, like, I've seen Russian POWs just shot in a mass grave and then covered over, and I've seen the remnants of Jewish mass slaughter. But these are the first people that were reporting in Germany on mass extermination of Jewish people. Mm-hmm. And like right now, there's the thing going on in the news where they're saying that a lot of people are forgetting about the Holocaust. You know about that?
What the huh?
Right.
Huh?
There's a lot of people like
I think they polled some kids.
Yeah, they don't know.
I mean, I don't know what to say.
Well, that's why you have to. That's why it has to be talked about and brought up, no matter how uncomfortable it is.
Yes.
Right.
Even like lynching in the United States.
You have to talk about it.
You have to bring it up.
You do. Because the idea of the forefront of human industrial ability being used to exterminate a people is just so insanely terrifying that it's almost out of a sci-fi thing.
Yeah, it is the most. It's the most sci-fi comic book thing ever have happened in human history. I think. Yeah, and next to the atomic bomb is one thing. It's very kind of like the genie in a bottle. Yeah, but the death machine apparatus. Is so. I mean, Star Wars doesn't come close. It doesn't come close.
Yeah, and there's a thing like I think a lot of people are like. People, like, when I was growing up in New York, people would be like, slavery, that was like 200 years ago. It's like, oh, that's nothing.
Yeah, all we've done now is just commercialized it to the point where you have to pay to be in prison.
Right, yes. So there's like kind of a similar thing with the Holocaust of being like, well, what do you want? It's over. Forget about it. And it's like, no,
Echoes.
you have to really pay attention and really take a long time unpacking things like slavery and the Holocaust because...
the echoes they echo till today, those effects.
Right, yeah. But it was almost talked about in a way when I was growing up like, oh, yeah, it was like as bad or maybe even not as bad as the Cambodian genocide, which is just totally not true at all. You know? The genocide of all time is the Holocaust. It's more severe than any of them.
Because it was so, it was not, because it was so mechanized and so precise and so...
Yeah.
Well, obviously state-sponsored. It wasn't, Stalin killed 20-30 million of his own people, but it wasn't in the collated to the decimal point fashion that the Jewish Holocaust was.
And, the original, like the Nuremberg laws, not about the trials, the Nuremberg laws were about stuff about, we're going to determine what makes you a Jew, right? We're going to tell you, like, how much Jewish blood you have in you, that we just consider you a Jewish person, and then we're going to tell you if you can marry this person.
Yeah.
So there was people in the White Rose resistance that were like, oh yeah, my dad tried to remarry to a Jewish girl and then was discouraged by the Nuremberg laws.
Do you remember what the number was? It 3/5?
Cute.
Thank you.
I don't remember. But it was like, some people would come into the movement like that, being like, well, I know this woman is a good woman and she can't marry my father because of her Jewish blood and stuff like that. So some people come in like that. But like at first when all these kids are meeting in Munich University, they don't want to talk politics because that's like all discouraged, Well,
it's happening now too here. Not being able to talk about things is so dangerous.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about it. It's uncomfortable.
Yeah, well, that's your problem, bro.
Right. No, it's very true. It's like it's the ultimate way that they kind of swindle you at the end is like it's like in a very North Korea way. Like in North Korea, it's impolite to talk about politics.
I wonder why.
Right.
There's one.
Yeah. Weed is legal though, by the way.
Oh, so nice. Great.
Is that true?
Yep.
Really?
So is breaking rocks for a living.
It's encouraged.
Yeah. So anyway, all these kids, they finally they're like throwing out all these pamphlets. They from the top of the Munich University throw out the 6th pamphlet. And one of the janitors sees them doing this, Sophie and her brother. And he fingers them,
Ew.
Yeah.
Phrasing.
Oh, he drops the dime.
Right.
No Jewish jokes, Matt.
So this guy, Chris Probst, as a fellow conspirator.
Probst fingers the kids.
No. The janitor fingers Probst, Sophie and Han.
Oh, God.
They all get nabbed.
Who's on first?
This guy, Roland Freisler of the People's Court of the Greater German Reich, is sent from Berlin to do the kangaroo court that they do.
Of course.
Honey, I can't be here this weekend. I have to go put these kids to death.
Yeah.
So he goes and he's the judge and he acts like completely the prosecutor. He is just like railing against...
As the impartial wink wink judge.
Right. Yeah. And they also have fake ass defense attorneys for these kids. One of which says, all I can say is let justice be done. So he's just like a fucking stooge standing there acting like, there's any kind of law at all. But he's going on and on and on. And he's talking about all this fucking, how can you betray the country, blah, 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 and like all this shit. He's saying all this fucking, and he's really perplexed that it's like, good German kids from good German families. How can you leave us at this time like this? And Sophie speaks up.
Hell yeah.
Sophie, 21 years of age, says, somebody after all had to make a start. What we wrote and said is also believed by many others. They just don't dare to express themselves as we did. And then later she says, you know the war is lost. Why don't you have the courage to face it? Oof. She's the only one talking during this trial.
You move.
You move. Right? Her parents, Robert and Magdalene, they come up to the court, after they were tried 4 days after their arrest. Their parents come up and they're denied entry. And the mother
the court?
To the court.
Uh-huh.
And the mother says, but I'm the mother of 2 of the accused. And the guard says, should have raised them better.
Jesus.
So Robert, the guy who basically started all this shit. Mm-hmm. And this is the thing is that
the father who originally was...
The father who was originally like...
Fuck this Nazi shit.
Yes. Nothing happens to him and his wife. They live, right?
Well...
But there's a thing of like, what do you think of how somebody deals with unpacking politics onto their child that makes them make this kind of decision? I'm asking you.
Oh, God. I mean, this is before... He knows that his daughter is going to die. Probably, right?
They're in a Nazi kangaroo court. It's not looking good.
Man, I don't have a kid that I know of, so... But you have to... there's got to be some like genetic, deep biological guilt and regret that your kid is going to die.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like there's also got to be like some pride there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I can't imagine.
I always think for parents, and I'm not a parent, so that's obviously...
Aren't you a parent of like 18 kids?
Oh, well,
you are my daddy.
That's a whole different story.
Yeah, you're a parent, but not a father.
Right, no, hold on. All right, continue.
But a lot of the idea is I want to leave my kids with a better situation than I had.
Sure.
And a lot of that is why the estate tax has been repealed. There's a whole... We can go to a lot of things with that. But here he is. He has taught his children exactly what he wanted to teach them.
What he thinks is right.
And they did what he would want someone to do,
right.
but not them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I meant for other people, not you.
Right.
And just live through the war. And we can all... But...
Put your head down.
Yeah.
So that's... Yeah.
There's a lot of conflict there.
Robert, the father, bursts into the courtroom and he says, one day there will be another kind of justice. One day they will go down in history. They are found guilty of treason and sentenced to death. They are sent to Stadelheim prison. The parents are allowed to meet with Hans and Sophie. Hans says he thanks them for loving him. And he has to kind of turn away before he starts crying. Like a bitch. Very good.
Just kidding. I'm about to cry right now, so...
Sophie comes in smiling. Her mom offers her candy.
Huh.
And she says, yeah, well, I haven't had any lunch. She grabs a big handful and starts chomping.
Hell yeah!
And her mother says, to think you won't be coming through our door anymore.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh.
And Sophie says... Mother, those were a few little years. We took everything upon ourselves. What we did will cause waves.
Fuck.
And her mother says, Sophie, remember Jesus. And Sophie kind of forcefully says, yes, but you too. Right? Just like, remember your own faith. Right? And she leaves smiling. And then this guy, Robert Moore, who's an SS officer, who originally interrogated Sophie and thought she was innocent, sees her in her cell later, and he's like, it was the first time I saw her cry.
After her mom left?
After she left her parents. And he's a Gestapo guy.
Yeah.
Says,
a storm fucking trooper.
Right, and he says, it's the first time he saw her cry, and she said, I've just said goodbye to my parents. You understand. So obviously this guy, Robert Moore, this Gestapo guy, was the one that told this story.
Yeah. It moved him.
It moved a Gestapo guy.
Yeah.
Psycho, right? This their other co-conspirator, not related, is Christoph Probst, and he had no family visit him because at the time his wife was giving birth to their third child. So his family didn't know he was arrested or sent to death.
Oh my God!
Because they were dealing with the birth of this child, and he's granted access to a Catholic priest, talks to him, and he says, now my death will be easy and joyful. right? Sophie was led first to the guillotine.
Oh, Lord.
Wait, so they don't gas non-Jewish German citizens.
They need all the gas they can get.
They behead them.
Yeah.
Which is something I couldn't believe.
It's probably an easier death.
Well, they had this kind of more automated sort of German thing. It's called a whatever.
Das
it's
Guillotine.
Volkswagen.
It's a faster version of the guillotine.
More fuel efficient.
They're like, yeah, what if we made it faster?
Yeah. Well, everybody is saying, first of all the Gestapo people, all these people in the prison, before they die, they allow all three of them to meet.
Together.
All the co-conspirators. Christoph Probst, who just had a kid, Hans, the brother,
Sophie.
and Sophie. They all are allowed to go together because everybody is so impressed by their bravery, and they're also saying, like, this is the thing, is that it's creeping into some of these people involved in the Third Reich. They're saying,
holy shit, maybe right.
These fucking kids are right. Maybe, like, we're wrong.
Yeah.
And they're probably allowing a lot of this shit because of white privilege, etc., and Aryan privilege, but they're also probably saying, like, man, I gotta give it up for these kids. They really are immediately going to their death so bravely,
right?
And none more so than Sophie, who's the youngest at 21.
Right. It's kind of like in a lot of movies, but in True Romance, in True Romance, when Christopher Walken and he's having that conversation with Dennis Hopper, and he's like, "Man, it sucks. I got to kill you."
Yeah.
In another life, maybe
there's a respect.
There's a respect there, and I think, but the attention that it's a weird like autoimmune response. Sometimes, like if you have an autoimmune disease, it's because your immune system is overreacting to an otherwise what would be a benign pathogen or something, and that autoimmune response then causes a whole cascade of problems in your whole body, right? And so the Third Reich's response to the White Rose. Perhaps caused a bit more ripples that caused their downfall, right? Caused all this attention and notoriety to 5 or 3 people.
Well, I think that's kind of why they didn't go more after the family, is because if they went after more of them,
it would have vilified them.
It's kind of one of those things where it's like, when drug dealers have to make an example, but they don't want to create more of a problem,
right?
You know what I'm saying?
I know. Yes, I do.
It's very much that kind of thing where it's like, okay, do we do something to send a message here, or are we going to bring down a lot of heat, like civilian heat?
And are we acting appropriately to the what they did,
right?
Because they don't want to make if it becomes a headline, children resistors, then people are like, well, why were these kids? And then suddenly everybody looks into it. I'm reminded like a little bit of the story of Jesus. Why is Jesus the martyr? He wasn't the first zealot.
Right.
To be crucified. He was just the one that became popular.
Right.
And that's because of the press of his brother Joseph afterwards.
Right. Yeah.
And so a lot of it is like, how do we tamp it down without it affecting things?
Right. Yeah.
But here are these kids that are so strong, so sympathetic, with so much emotion, and even the guards are moved by it.
Yeah, and a lot of the thing is, like, I'm not really playing up here, is a lot of their correspondence among each other and Sophie's boyfriend on the front and all that stuff. There would be a lot of quoted sermons and everything else from a lot of prominent theologians and people saying just about what is right, the right thing to do, And some of them are Protestant and some of them are Catholic. There's no kind of like main thing there that's like, it's just about like the human spirit has to be better than some things. And that's kind of what these kids took and ran with.
From the verse Civil War, Book 6, June 9th, Chapter Captain America. No, you move.
Yeah. Right.
And let it be said to plant yourself like a tree by the river of truth. And yea, there may be detractors, and the mob may say this, and the government may say that, but let he who... Sorry.
That's an old... I mean, that was the...
No, you move.
That's taken. You just reminded me that's taken from that old spiritual, like a tree planted by the water.
Yeah.
We shall not be.
Do you guys want to get "No You Move" tattoos?
Yeah. Before I ever do a poignant episode, I always try to tie it into some trashy parable that I know you and me can relate on.
It's not fucking trashy.
It's not trashy.
At all.
It's comic books are trashy.
No, I honestly,
it's
John,
really good.
I'm very, very happy and touched that you brought that up.
I really thought of it the first
intro.
time. Yeah, I really thought of it the first time. But
You know how I feel.
so Sophie is the first led to the guillotine, and everybody says she is like without turning a hair, without flinching, just so scarily like, I know this is what it is. What we're doing here matters. This will cause. Christoph Probst, who just had his third kid, he's next, right? Sophie's brother Hans is last. As the blade is falling on his head, he screams, "Long live freedom," in German. Super fucking Bravehearty, right? Now let me tell you a little something, Aaron.
We're talking about him right now.
Johann Rycart is the man that dropped the blade on these three.
Johann Rycart?
Johann Rycart. He's the executioner.
Sorry, it's me, just Johann.
Whoops, I'm just doing my job here.
It's the heart of
so
the
sorry.
Reich.
He detailed in his own notes all of his executions.
Oh god, that's
3,000.
That's a hell of a fucking diary.
3,165.
Oh jeez.
Detailed records.
John Fifth.
And as busy as he was keeping up with the kangaroo courts of the Nazi regime to execute tons and tons of people, he would still follow the old tradition of wearing the executioner's outfit, which includes
the
a black coat, a white shirt, white gloves, clean hands, white gloves is part of the outfit, a black bow tie, and a fucking black top hat.
What?
Top hat? That's what the executioner
He's a fucking magician. Now, ladies and gentlemen, for my next trick, I make the people's heads disappear.
Right? Jesus Christ. So that was tradition. This was traditional. Like no matter what was going on, no matter how many people he had to kill, he would always wear all the shit and do the thing. He was just like, "This is my job. This is what I'm going to do."
Did they say who thought of that?
This is traditional from before his time, right?
There's a great hardcore history podcast where it's I think the title it's one of his most recent.
Listen to it after
Dan
this.
Carlin's. Check it out after you listen to the whole Profiles in Eccentricity catalog.
And you
I think it's called Painfotainment, and he just details a lot of going back to bread and circuses and the public executions and the Colosseum. It's a whole thing. But he does talk about executioners through history and the mystique behind them.
Yes,
and the gravitas of the job and how they had their own air about them in public, and they had to eat at certain places. It was very, very weird. I recommend you listen to it again after you listen to the entire Profiles in Eccentricity catalog. Well, check it out.
It's a fascinating thing.
What a job! You're the hand of fate, justice, God, Satan, whatever.
Yeah, it's I mean, it's one of those things where I'm like, I don't know how anybody could ever do it. I don't know how anybody could just be a prison warden and just contain your fellow man. I don't know how anybody could do that job, but let alone
capitalism, baby.
But let alone execute 3,165 people.
Personally.
Yes. So he's he works in Poland and as far as Austria, and he requested the Nazi regime to be able to break the speed limit on the way to executions. To get there faster, to be able to kill them more efficiently.
Well, that's happening in states across the United States where they're like, in Texas, they're like, we need to get these executions quicker. We can't, we're waiting too long. It's costing us money.
Yeah, retarded people we got to execute.
Yeah. Right. The Nazis denied his request, by the way, believe it or not.
Sorry, rules are rules. Johann, rules are rules. So no rules, we're no better than the animals you're trying to kill.
So after VE Day, he throws away his guillotine.
Wait! How big is this?
What does he just bag it up and chuck it in the trash?
In a river or something? And people were like, "What? That doesn't sound right."
I can't swim in that river.
I threw it away. I promise.
So he's arrested under the terms of denazification, right? And you got to get rid of all these fucking Nazis, right? Rehired by the occupational forces to execute Nazis at Nuremberg.
Oh, no shit.
This motherfucker. The same one that killed Sophie Scholl and all the White Rose
now
kids.
Executing
Nazis at Nuremberg.
Does he have to learn new American guillotine?
Does he have to wear the outfit?
He executes 156 and then he stops He refuses to continue after 2 cases of mistaken identity.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, God.
So now he's got a conscience.
Oh,
After the Nazi kangaroo courts.
It'd be funny if they made him do it wearing an Uncle Sam outfit, which is the top hat and the whole suit and everything. This is humiliating.
And I'm talking about this is under American forces, too. This is under a...
U.S. Marshall Plan type of stuff.
Yeah. And,
I guess everybody was like, well, we don't have a professional killer.
Right.
Who's available?
Fucking Operation Paperclip, baby.
But he engineered methods to reduce suffering during the executions. He would do stuff like, you got to buckle you in so you don't struggle and strive and you get your head chopped off, all that stuff. He was just like, no, I'm going to get 2 or 3 big ass guys, pull you as taut as you can, and then it's a 3 or 4 second death. So he was actually kind of into increasing mercy in his work.
I think increasing efficiency, but you can call it mercy.
Sure. He lives in West Germany after the war, and they abolished the death penalty in 1949, and
something we still have not. Okay.
He lives a very sad life. His wife leaves him.
Huh.
In 1950, his son takes his own life because of his father's reputation.
Fuck.
Jesus. And then in 1963 in Germany, there was a series of taxi driver killings. And they started talking about bringing back the death penalty. And Johann Rycart spoke out against it. How about that shit?
Yeah, it's a... Gosh, I think it was in the movie Ides of March where George Clooney's playing a presidential candidate.
Yes.
And he's on fucking McLaren. He's on one of those, interview shows. And he asks, the guy asks Clooney's character, are you for or against the death penalty?
Yeah.
And he says, I'm against it.
I think this is almost the beginning of the movie, too.
It's either the beginning or the end. I don't remember, but it really stood out for me.
Very good.
And he was like, I'm against it. And he's like, why? Well, and he's like, well, it's a perfect punishment, but we have an imperfect system.
Yeah.
And then he asks him, what if you found out somebody had murdered and raped your wife and children? He said, I'd kill them.
Yeah.
But I thought the phrase it's a perfect punishment, but we have an imperfect system is a really poignant.
Interestingly, that question was what helped give the presidency to, I think it was the first George Bush.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's why they brought it up in that movie. It was to put people in this tough on
crime.
Well, you have to be for a Democrat to say it. The idea was, well, if it was me, I'm such a rogue that I would kill them, but I believe in the rule of law, so I believe the law should be that nobody should be allowed to kill them.
Right.
But I also have to act folksy enough that I'm like, if somebody killed my wife,
I'm a cowboy.
Yeah, exactly. So that was the whole deal.
But also, maybe there's some truth to that.
Yeah. Fritz, by the way, Sophie's boyfriend, was
on the front lines.
He escaped Stalingrad. He didn't have to get there, but he still got back after Sophie was killed, and he ended up marrying Sophie's sister.
Younger? Hell yeah, Fritz, get it. Rosebud.
Live your best life.
Get that white rosebud, bro.
So there was this...
Listen, we're a fucking podcast about piss. Okay?
We open with piss.
We open with piss. Every rose has a thorn. Shout out to Bill and Ted.
Brad Michaels definitely is involved in piss, even if the story is...
Oh, yeah, well, he's diabetic, so it's a sweet piss. That's how they used to check if you had diabetes back in Rome. They would taste your pee.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Back in Rome, is that right?
Ancient Rome.
Really?
Yes.
And they'd be like, you got diabetes? I just drank.
Well, it's called diabetes mellitus. And so mel is the Latin root for honey.
Oh.
And so it's sweet. So they would taste your pee-pee, and if it was sweet, you got that sugar diabetes.
Try it at home, folks.
Yeah.
Taste your piss. Try it out.
The young lady that was sharing the cell with Sophie recorded her last words, which we love on this program.
I love last words. I love Sophie. I love White Roses. I love this profile.
Sophie said, how can we expect righteousness to prevail when there is hardly anyone willing to give himself up individually to a righteous cause? Such a fine sunny day, and I have to go. But what does my death matter if through us thousands of people are stirred to action? The leaflet that got them caught by the fucking janitor, that was smuggled out of the country, and it was dropped by Allies over occupied Germany.
Shit.
And it was renamed the Manifesto of the Students of Munich. So that was the kind of most immediate bearing it had. There was a bunch of people that were found out in the immediate investigation afterwards. Some people kind of folded, grassed each other up. Some more people were killed, sentenced to concentration camps, stuff like that. One other girl her trial kept getting delayed because of Allied bombing raids. Until finally the Allies bombed the town she was held in and she was freed. So there was a girl from the White Rose that was freed. Some people have said things like this. The playwright Lillian Garrett Groag said in Newsday, "It is possibly the most spectacular moment of resistance that I can think of in the 20th century. The fact that 5 little kids in the mouth of the wolf, where it really counted, had the tremendous courage to do what they did is spectacular to me. I know that the world is better for them having been there, but I do not know why." In the same issue of Newsday, Holocaust historian Judd Newborn noted that you cannot really measure the effect of this kind of resistance and whether or not X number of bridges were blown up or a regime fell. The White Rose really has a more symbolic value, but that's a very important value.
Arguably the most.
Yeah. And I just want to leave you with these are, the words that made me fall in love with the story, and they were put out by my friend Josh Jubinski, who does a label called Dead Tank Records. And it was the first picture I ever saw of Sophie Scholl. And so on February 22nd, 1943, Sophie Scholl was executed with her brother Hans for leading student resistance against Hitler as part of the White Rose Group. She was 21. Quote from Sophie: "The real damage is done by those millions who want to, quote-unquote, survive. The honest men who just want to be left in peace. Those who don't want their little lives disturbed by anything bigger than themselves. Those with no sides and no causes. Those who won't take measure of their own strength for fear of antagonizing their own weakness. Those who don't like to make waves or enemies. Those for whom freedom, honor, truth, and principles are only literature. Those who live small, mate small, die small. It's the reductionist approach to life. If you keep it small, you keep it under control. If you don't make any noise, the boogeyman won't find you. But it's all an illusion because they die too, those people who roll up their spirits into tiny little balls so as to be safe. Safe? From what? Life is always on the edge of death. Narrow streets lead to the same place as wide avenues, and a little candle burns itself out just like a flaming torch does. I choose my own way to burn." No, you move.
Yeah, dude. Ladies and gentlemen, a tear just rolled from my eye.
That's our show, folks. I love you. My name's John Fahey.
Thank you. That was beautiful, John.
That was amazing. I'd like to thank Hip Quotient and Eric Spitzegal for MTV.com for helping me with my piss stuff.
Thank you, guys. I love you.
I love you all.
Piss and heroism. What are you gonna? What else do you want? You know what I mean?
Good night.
Good night. Good night.